We need to excuse a couple board members. Board member Bruce Jardine and Dean Oborn have been excused tonight. And we have Jan Burrell with us virtual. So thank you, Jan, for joining us. We will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and our superintendent, Dr. Stevens, would lead us in that. Please, Dr. Stevens.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. Board, our first item on the agenda will be the consent calendar. I'd entertain a motion to accept. Janice, second by Paul. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Jan? Very good. That passed. The next item, action item on the agenda, would be the consideration of a resolution to conduct the November 2nd, 2021 local special bond. Dr. Robert Peterson, please.
I'll just use this one. Thanks, President. As part of the legal requirements of having a bond election, as was initiated by the board at our last meeting in August, it's necessary to pass what they call a procedures resolution. And we also have with us our bond counsel, Ryan Bierke from Chapman and Cutler, and he's here to make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's. So I'm glad that he's here. This resolution says it's a resolution providing for the conduct of the local special bond election to be held in Weber School District, Utah, on November 2nd, 2021, and providing for related matters. Just a half dozen highlights. It provides for an election officers actually. It also provides procedures to work with the county to use established voting precincts and polling places. It authorizes the use of county staff to help carry out the election. It also requires election notices and provides for those. And it also gives authorizations to produce and distribute a voter information pamphlet and the posting of a sample ballot. And it also provides for a canvassing meeting to be held after the election. And lastly, payment for the election, how it's to be funded. And there's other related matters, but those are the highlights. And so, President, this is one of those things that we need to approve so that the groundwork for an election can be held on November 2nd.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens, or Dr. Peterson. Having said that, we need to go to a public hearing. The public hearing is strictly for the issuance of a $279 million general obligation bond on the impact to the economy in the Weber County area. Having said that, we have a sign-up sheet. Do we have anybody signed up, Pam? We'll set some guidelines, which is, I'll read off the list. If you'll come to the mic and state your name, where you live, and you'll be given 3 minutes, please. So, Carolyn.
Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Lee Tuvenikas from North Ogden. Thank you guys for serving our community. We appreciate the elected officials that serve the community. As far as the bond issue goes, I think that, and I unfortunately didn't bring stats for that, but I think that with the advent of decentralized just about everything now, decentralized school is a good thing. In these large institutional buildings that you guys want or are advocating, the bullying is a lot higher. The incidence of bullying, the incidence of teachers running amok and teaching things that we the parents don't know specifically about what that's going on. This this push to CRT, using that as a premise to implement socialism and communism in this country, is a very much concern to my friends and all my fellow parents. Now, just because I'm here, that doesn't mean that there's not a lot more parents that feel like I do. In fact, more of them feel like that and most of them are working, or they have kids to take care of. They can't come to a meeting like this. So, me and my little posse, we're the voice of the parents that can't come to your meetings. And I would say that all of you need to reevaluate your motives behind implementing bond issue, which is placing more debt on our communities, on our tax-paying community members for a building or set of buildings which are outmoded. That whole idea of school perhaps is outmoded. We need to reevaluate and configure that, because smaller schools tend to have better outcomes. Look at Capstone Classical Academy, which the school charter board so rudely put out of business, but their quality of their student teaching, the grades that the students were achieving, the good citizens that they were producing coming out of that school was phenomenal. But because there's elements in the school board system, and I have to charge each of one of you to look at what are your motives for going ahead and wanting to make these large prison-looking buildings a primary feature in our communities, because I do realize that it affects jobs, it affects teachers. Having a nice cushy office building like this is really nice with all the newest technology and all that. It's all great and everything. But is it really producing the citizens that we want? I don't know. I've seen kids coming out of some of these schools. They can't be respectful to their elders, much less their fellow students. Are they respectful to their parents? Are they respectful to their teachers? Well, I don't know. I've seen some really horrific videos about that. Then I've seen some really horrific teacher videos teaching CRT and other very, very destructive policies. Mindset, theology. That stuff is theology. And as much as Christianity gets bashed for how evil it is over implementing Christianity or talking about church in the school, I would say that Christianity and what we've accomplished in this United States based on a Judeo-Christian government is phenomenal. The 5,000-Year Leap by Cleon Skousen, probably one of the best books out there. I'm not LDS, but he's an LDS guy and he wrote a phenomenal book. I think all of you should read one. If you haven't read it, I'll give you a copy, because it outlines like 28 different principles that makes America great. Not great because we're better than any other country, we have better people or anything. It's because our system of government is unique. It empowers people to be involved in their government and to go ahead and inspire greatness and merit. I've been to 25 different countries, and I haven't found another one that I liked better than this one. And I have to say, I have to question the motives of people that are going and promoting the idea that we need more
Carol,
schools.
could you hurry? We've already gone over 3, and I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. So anyway, that's my comment. Thank you for
Thank you.
entertaining. I do have one question. Is this an open or a closed meeting? In accordance with Utah Legislative Code 52. Can you classify this meeting for me as open or closed? Is it an open or closed meeting? That's the descriptions that are in the legislative code, because that determines what kind of public access we can expect to have here today. And I want to be clear on the expectation so that these fellows over here don't have anything to do with hauling me out of here if I ask a question. Open or closed? Open. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you. Carson Chadwick, please. Carson, I think you just walked in. If you'll just state where your address, where you're from, and you'll have 3 minutes, please.
Sure. I'm from Washington Terrace, born and raised in Washington Terrace. Attended Roosevelt Elementary School and T.H. Bell Junior High and Bonneville High School. And I moved back into this neighborhood after my wife and I got married and started having kids, because I love this neighborhood. I love Weber County. I love the school district. I'm proud to be from this area. I'm proud of what those schools did for me, the teachers that I had. I took my daughter back to school night the other night and saw my kindergarten teacher still there, working at the school. So my answer would be, that's what these schools do. They raise people like me and help us to be successful. So I'm very supportive of the bond and of the board and how successful you guys have been at running this district over the last 20 or 30 years, depending on how long you've been here. So I appreciate that, and I'm in support of what you guys are doing and the decisions you guys have made. So thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you, Carson. We appreciate that. I don't have anybody else on my list for the open comment. And seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the issuance of the $279 million economic impact. So moved by Paul. Second by Janice. Any discussion? This is no, we're going to close that. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Having said that, we need to now accept that presentation. The resolution that Dr. Peterson had presented to us on the issuance of $279 million general obligation bond with the economic impact fee with no tax increase the November 2nd, 2021 election. No rate increase.
So we'll need a roll call vote on the
That's
procedures
correct.
resolution. And I'll just go around and you say aye or nay. Paul Whittison. Douglas Hurst. Yes. Yes.
We have not. I was waiting for that before
Okay.
Robert dropped in.
Sorry.
Jan, can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll need a motion and
To approve the
to approve
procedures,
the procedure.
resolution.
Soon as-
Motion and the second, then there should be discussion.
Yeah. So I need a motion to accept. So Paul will make that motion to accept. Doug will second it. Any discussion?
I really appreciate the comments that have been made. As this board knows, I had the same concerns about CRT, about some of the disrespect that has been shown to parents inadvertently by isolated faculty members. And yet I see with the abundance of growth and numbers in our area, I feel the need to accommodate the young ones coming into this area. My desire and my hope is to continue to work on the quality of information, the authenticity of it tied to our country and the history of our country, and to continue to work and as interested, concerned parents to stay on top of what's happening in schools, to stay on top of what their children are being taught. It has to do with parents' involvement. I raised 6 kids who went through this wonderful district. There was a time when we could just take for granted what's being taught. Parents can't do that anymore. They must be involved. They must be concerned. They must be attentive. And that is what I would hope for as we build environments to accommodate these precious little people coming into our district, that we just don't throw our hands up and say, good luck. I hope you can find a smaller school someplace. I think it behooves us to work on the quality and the nature of the education. And we as a board cannot do that alone. that must be concerned, involved, positive parents, not nasty, critical, attacking. We have to work with the faculties and say, this is what we need to happen. This is not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Robert, roll call, please.
Board Member Paul Whittison. Douglas Hurst. Janice Christensen. Jan Burrell.
Aye.
And John Ritchie.
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you. We got the nod from Mr. Jerski. Him too. Thank you, Robert. And Ryan for being with us. Our next item on the agenda board would be the approval of adoption policy 3130, investment policy on a first reading. Dr. Peterson, please.
Every 6 months, we fill out a report, our department, for the money for the Utah State Treasurer, where we make a report of where our funds are invested. The bulk of our funds are invested in the Public Treasurer's Investment Fund, and we have small investments in approved money because the state legislature has passed the Money Management Act that limits what you can invest in. It's safe, liquid places. And this last time, when we went to fill out a report, a pop-up box said, "You need an investment policy official." And we have an investment policy, but it's not in our policy manual. And so this, on a first reading, is the investment policy, and it reads pretty simple, and it basically says we will be in accordance with the Money Management Act, and we'll give you quarterly reports, which we can do in the consent calendar, quarterly reports of how the investments are doing. And we need that to be approved on a first reading, so we're in compliance with the request from the Utah State Treasurer.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson, for that presentation. And there will be a month that they can chime in if somebody, and I've read that policy, hope the other board members have. I'd entertain a motion to accept the adoption of investment policy 3130 on a first reading, board. So moved by Paul, second by Janice. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We'll see you on that next month. Robert?
Yep.
Next item on the agenda board would be the approval of revised policy 3300, purchasing and revised policy 3310 on bids and quotations on a first reading. Dr. Peterson, please.
I'm on again. We have, as you know, we follow the state procurement code, and we can be more strict than the state procurement code in our levels of where we have to go to bid, where we have to come for board approval, those type of things. And we have not looked at that for a very long time. In fact, the whole time I've been here, it's not been looked at. And meanwhile, the state procurement code has risen to be more with inflation. And so we are proposing a new caps, if you will, on where bids have to be taken, where comparables have to be taken, and it's written, and we've updated our policy. That's why it's a revised policy. And this has been recommended to us also by our independent auditor, and we're just catching up with inflation, what has not occurred. And we presented this to the principals at our annual admin meeting to kick off, and we actually got applause, because it'll help them in the conduct of their purchasing.
Very well done. Thank you, and muchly appreciated on following through to make sure that we have those principles online with purchasing. So, board, I'd entertain a motion again to approve revised policy 3300 on purchasing and revised policy 3310 on quotes and bids on a first reading. So moved by Doug, second by Janice. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That also will come next month, Robert, please.
Yep.
Our next item, board, would be the approval of revised policy 4199, special education policy statement on a second reading. Quinn Carlindsey, please. Quinn, you may need to turn that on.
We're good. Board Superintendent. On August 4th, we were able to amend the policy 4199 and update the Weber School District Special Education Policy and Procedure Manual. And we presented that to the board on a first reading, and it was approved. So now we're here to ask for approval on a second reading. Since the June meeting, we haven't had any updates or any input to add to those proposed changes. As a reminder, policy 4199, the updates were just to fall in line more with the formatting with other Weber School District policies. And then the policy and procedure manual needed to be revised so that it would come into compliance with the changes to the USBE rules and regulations in special education. We have a year from the time those changes take effect to update our policy and procedures manual. And so we are at that time frame. The USB gives us a template that we can use for our policy and procedures manual. We've utilized that. We send that to the special education department at the state level, and they approved that last July, or this past July. And so we are here asking for the board's approval on a second reading.
Nice job, Quinn. Board, you've heard the discussion presentation as well as the no comments over the last 30 days. I'd entertain a motion to accept the approval of revised policy 4199, special education policy statement on a second reading. So moved by Paul. Second by Doug. Any discussion, board? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Jan. That motion carries, so go ahead and go to work. The next item would be the approval of revised policy 4170, attendance policy on a first reading. Carla Porter, please.
Superintendent Board, over the last several years, we have had several policies that touch on attendance. So we've had attendance and truancy, attendance and citizenship, overall attendance. And to make this more cohesive, we decided it would be better to just have one attendance policy. There were some other things that we needed to address, and thus we have this revision. About 3 to 4 years ago, the law changed around truancy and law enforcement's involvement with truancy and juvenile court. So we needed to update our policy to remove some of that language that was in there as well. This year, we're in a truancy moratorium, which is something that was put in place because of, obviously, this last year that we've been in. We don't want to have any kind of punitive actions on students when they're not here. So this year, we also had to add some things to our policy that would state that we would not be sending compulsory education letters or truancy notices. However, in our policy, so that we don't have to amend it if this moratorium does go away, because it's only in place until June 1st, we have put in there that unless state law states otherwise, so we could keep our policy as it is, as amended. So the updated policy also encourages interventions and supports to our students and families who have habitual absences. So in an effort to ensure compliance with law and to update all of these changes, we are introducing policy 4170 for your approval on a first reading.
Thank you, Carla. Board, you've heard the presentation and the purpose behind the approval of revised policy 4170, attendance policy on a first reading, and I'd entertain a motion to accept. Moved by Paul, second by Doug. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We will see you next month.
Okay, thank you so
Carla.
much.
Board, we've come to the end of our agenda for this board meeting, and I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by Doug. Second by Paul. All in favor? Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jan, for being on with us, and be safe.
Thank you.